I said, I'm the communications director for Iowa District West, and we thought it would be a good idea to kind of talk with churches about different best practices of social media. So we'll go ahead and dive in. So my first question is, what is social media, or how do you define it? Would either of you like to share how you would define social media?
In other words, we have to talk tonight, don't we?
Yes, yes. What do you think?
Well, the way to connect with other people via the internet. So Facebook, chats, Messenger, I suppose Twitter. I don't do some of those things like that. But.
Yeah. Yes, so it definitely is a way to communicate. Merriam-Webster dictionary defines it as social media as forms of electronic communication through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content such as videos. So this includes your websites, this includes Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all of those things, because they are either community-based or information-based. So currently, I think you guys mentioned a few, but what are some of the things that you guys currently use for social media?
I think Grace at Storm Lake, it has something for Gracia, which we meet at Storm Lake also, but I'm not too sure of what they have. Except I've seen a few Facebook. I think it's a Facebook page.
Yeah, Facebook, some websites. Lori, welcome.
The old-fashioned email blasts.
Yes, email blasts. Lori, what does your church use for social media currently?
We currently use Facebook right now. That's really the main one.
Yeah, awesome. So here are some ones that I think a lot of us think of when we think of social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and YouTube. They kind of all have slightly different advantages and disadvantages. Facebook tends to be very video-based, but also information-driven. Instagram is very picture-based. It's growing more and more video-based as well, but they're very story-driven, so telling a story, not just sharing facts. Twitter is short and to the point. It has very limited characters. You can only use like 280, I think. Snapchat is instantaneous pictures, and YouTube is video. But here are some that maybe you haven't heard of before. Gab, it's created by Christians for Christians. And as we've seen, a lot of the big different areas of social media have been impacted by political agendas and other things, and sometimes they shut down Christian sites. So the advantage of Gab is that, you know, it's Christians for Christians. Getter encourages free speech. So again, trying not to shut people down. There's a big trend for cancel culture right now, and that would be the opposite of that. Rumble, so this is an alternative to YouTube because YouTube does the same thing. It can tend to shut down the conservative speakers. Blogs, which many of us scroll through on websites without even realizing, and podcasts, the audio files. Sometimes you might upload sermons and things. So those are just a couple different types of social media.
So question, so
Yes.
that Gab would be something like Facebook that we could all get on and you could invite friends in that? So like you could have maybe your own church have its own Gab?
I believe so. Keith, would you like to answer that one?
Sure. So Gab is just like, it's designed to be just like Facebook, even interact like Facebook. You
Okay.
can do pages. You can have a social page. You can do videos and stuff on Gab. It's really simple to get onto, and it's actually growing. Getter is kind of like Twitter.
Mm,
It acts and reacts a lot like Twitter.
mm,
And Rumble, like you said, is just YouTube. You can do your. If I was going to start adding my sermons and worship services on something, I would start with Rumble, just because Rumble really does let you do that without having to worry about if YouTube will pull you off at some point. And all your content, you'll lose all your content. So if you're going to do YouTube, I would do Rumble at the same time, because if YouTube pulls everything down, you lose all your content.
Okay. We do our Sunday services are live streamed and put on YouTube.
Yeah, you can also do YouTube on Gab, like live stream on Gab as well.
Oh,
But I would you can do live stream on Rumble. I would really be looking at trying to do both, just because you just never know when YouTube or Facebook will cut off your live feed.
yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Um, so who uses social media and what platforms do they use? I'm just going to go ahead and share some stats. So this is a chart from Pew Research from January to February of 2021. And over here, you can see that the different colors are age groups. So this is 65, this is 18 to 29. And 2% of 65 plus use Snapchat, whereas 50% of them are on Facebook. On the other hand, we can see that only 42% of the 18 to 29-year-olds use Twitter, whereas 95% of them are on YouTube. Just taking a look at this, and then this over here kind of compares and contrasts. So there's only a 20% age gap or percentage difference between the youngest group and the oldest group on Facebook, whereas over here you can see there's a 63% difference between the youngest and oldest groups. Is there anything on this that surprises you, or would you have expected all of this?
Expected it. Probably.
Expected?
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't have stopped to think about the YouTube being so close. The Facebook one to me makes the most sense. But also Twitter, I feel like oftentimes we say it's kind of dying away, and that might be a slight proof of it because it is so much less than the other groups, but hard to say. Okay, so then I decided to look at the world's most used social media platforms, and this was from October of 2021 on Hootsuite. They did this study, and here we can see that the top 3 were Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp. And then some others. Are there anything on this that stands out, or ones you have never heard of?
There's a few. We chat, the Cena, whatever.
Yeah,
There's a few that I had never seen.
yeah,
There's several I never heard of.
Mhm.
yeah.
I have a WhatsApp account only because when I was in Hong Kong, we used it to keep connected so you knew where people were.
Yeah, I feel like to me, when I think of WhatsApp, I think of it much more Europe based, and I could be totally wrong, but I guess this is the world's most used social media, so it does include a lot of other countries, but that's very possible.
I found out that Hispanics that I've worked with, I use more the WhatsApp than the Facebook.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, different forms of communication. And so kind of the point here being that based on different ages, based on also kind of different demographics, they're going to be using different things, and that plays a part in what you choose to use with your church. So why do you guys think that people use social media? What do you think their top reason for using it is?
For me, it's to stay connected with my friends. That's how I learn a lot about some of my friends that you don't see or be in touch with in other ways.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Yeah, way to keep in touch with people far away. That's for me also.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys are right on par. 48% of people use it to stay in touch with friends and family. Others use it to fill up spare time, read news, entertainment, watching live streams, and the list goes on down to following celebrities, sports, and influencers. So when people are hopping on social media and are trying to connect with your church, they're probably more so on there already for friends and family, but somewhere in the midst of this, whether it's watching your church's live stream or following up with, well, not sports, but your church or like-minded communities, interest groups, you're connecting with them in different points. Okay, so on the other hand, why does your church use social media? Oftentimes we think of it as a tool, neither inherently good or bad, though we've seen it misused. Sometimes it's used to communicate your identity, who your organization is, what you stand for, and other times it's to create community, to bring people together. And when people go onto your website or onto your social media, some of the things they're looking at are your consistency. Depending on how frequently you post can tell a lot about how active you are as a congregation, what is important to you. Then they also want to see the visuals. If are you posting about real people events? Do people actually go to your church, or is it completely empty and you just have a random website up, you know? Accessible, are you active in comments and posts and shorts? Are you communicating with people through email? And then are you saying the same message repeatedly? Like what you're verbalizing is important. Is that showing through the other things, through the pictures and the consistency that you're showing as well? So another discussion point. So I pulled a random church's website, and what would you say, looking at this, is the message that they're communicating?
Young people.
Young
I was
people.
going to say youth.
Where you can come and get your coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. It's geared towards probably the millennial age group in their 40s, maybe 30s, 40s. They're community oriented. Their name is Fellowship Church, and they're also talking about belonging. Here's another one. What would you say their message is here?
Teaching the children. They have a children's group.
Mm-hmm.
They're active with the young kids.
Yes, the kids are very important. Mission and outreach is probably important. They're probably involved in some kind of global outreach of some kind. Okay, and then I found this random church's social media. We're just going to assume this isn't true, but that this was their last post, was over a month ago, and it was just about their food pantry. What would their message be there?
There should have been a follow-up to say the food pantry is, happening today.
Yeah. They're probably saying that, or at least the user might be assuming that they're using their social media primarily for announcements. And so the big thing that happened most recently was about their food pantry being closed. But indirectly, then it would be saying that the other things going on their church are either not happening or they're not as important. It's kind of one of those things where consistency does matter. Yeah. So from the user's perspective,
Do you mind if I ask a question?
absolutely.
Okay, so with that food pantry, what would be suggested to go along with it? Like an image of the food pantry? I agree, no food pantry tomorrow, maybe a lead in the next time that it would be at that church's location.
Yeah. A picture or that would be good, but probably the biggest thing would be if their last post was a month ago, to have something about their upcoming worship services or something else that has happened and been posted since then. Doing something to talk about the things that are happening and not just not makes them feel more active and welcoming than just having something and then silence.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, social media for the user. So we all kind of know that we have a very me-centric culture. All of us are kind of running around with a story in our own heads about what our own lives look like. And other people come in and out of that story as they interact with us. But essentially, we're just telling it from our own perspective. So when we go onto a social media site, we already have some kind of goal in mind, whether it's to find out what church times are or if we want to be involved, whatever the reason. So we're already taking our story and we're applying it to another organization. And some of the things we might ask is, do their values align with me? If I'm a Christian looking for another Christian church, I might be looking at their belief statements, or more simply, do I think that they actually believe in Jesus? Is their message speaking to my pain points? So not only am I looking for a church, but I am not a morning person. So do they have a later service? Or maybe I am a morning person and I really like the traditional service. So is the traditional service as 8? Does it address what my needs are? Its story, does its positioning make sense with my story? So if I have where I'm at in my life is what their values and their message, is it going to help and benefit me, or am I going to be able to help them in any way? Like, can they work together? And then after looking at their social media and interacting, am I going to make the decision to engage with them further, whether that's go to church or get involved in a Bible study, or did I learn enough to go, this probably is not going to align with me and I'm going to go a different direction? One of the terms for this of the story that these users is telling is called a buyer's journey. And that's usually from an organization. When as a church, as you're trying to address the needs of people, if you would ever Google it, you'd look up for a buyer's journey. But from the user, they look at it as, I have a problem. And for example, I don't have a lot of Christian friends my age. And then I'm going to look for a solution. So I'm going to Google churches that offer young adult Bible studies, compare and contrast times, determine if their values align with mine, and then maybe look at their social media, see how active they are, and then make my decision to attend a church Bible study at 7. But from the church's perspective, if this young adult is the person that you're trying to communicate with, they might not even know that they have a problem in the first place. You may have to teach them. From an organization's perspective, it's always better to educate than just share info, like, this is our next event. Education is a part of a good way to use social media. So here, one way that you could educate is, it's important to have Christian friends in your life. So you're addressing a problem that they may or may not know that they have. And if they do recognize it as a problem, they'll move to the next step. So then you can communicate, here are some Bible studies we have. Here are some ways that you can make some Christian friends. We have a solution for you. And then as they go through that process, then they'll make a decision to either that you are the solution for their problem or not. And so that's kind of the basic of how a user interacts with your platform. So as a congregation, a big piece of deciding what your social media is about and what it's going to communicate is addressing what problems you can help people solve. And one of the best places to look for that is to look at your strengths. Is your congregation really great at connecting the elderly? Is it great at bringing people to Jesus? Is it really family oriented? Whatever your strength is a good place to start for the problem that you can solve. So going back to these websites that we looked at earlier, one of the problems that they're communicating to people here is that some people might not have a sense of belonging or a sense of community, and their solution that they're offering is a place where they can connect. And then going to this one, what would you say the problem and solution is that they are communicating here?
I'm trying to think, because I am the mission board chairman at my church. And if I look at this, yeah, I just see it as the problem is that what about the others in my congregation? How am I going to involve them in ways to serve?
Yeah. Well, one way of looking at this one might be to say the problem is someone doesn't know their purpose. They're struggling with their purpose and where they're going maybe in life. And their solution is they're going to offer meaning, and it's going to involve Jesus. Another example, this was just a random church that I found, and it said, this is their post saying, it's such a blessing that we get to raise up the next generation here at Pathfinder and St. John School. Thank you for the amazing students who led us in worship today. If you miss this week's message, crafted on relationships, you can watch it here. I think there's two problems there acknowledging. One is the importance of raising up the next generation, and the other is if you missed that worship service. And the solutions they're offering is, well, they've gotten the opportunity to pour into the next generation and see those kids in action. And the other solution is, here's the website to participate. So when it comes to creating your message and clearly communicating, the first and most important thing is knowing who's communicating. If it's a hodgepodge mix of people communicating on your website and on your different social medias, you're likely going to end up having different messages. It's possible, but if you are going to have a team of people, collectively, you need to sit down and know what your key points and phrases that you're going to go back to are, and know and come to a definition of what your organization stands for and repeat that clearly. And you need to identify who you're really trying to talk to. As Christians, it's really easy to say we want to reach everybody, but the Lord's given each congregation different strengths, and so we often need to narrow down. And we'll go into that a little bit more, but in the meantime, I'm sharing this resource with you. It's called 7 Steps to Creating Your Best Nonprofit Marketing Plan Ever. It's a fairly simple, I think maybe 12-page packet with really basic questions. It's really great to work through with any leadership in your congregation and come up with some of those definitions for what's important, who are you serving. If you Google it, It's pretty easy to find. It's a little PDF with different resources, but I can email that out after this too. So moving into, and I think you kind of already, one of you already kind of touched on it. It's hard to define who your audience is because oftentimes as Christians, like God told us to go and serve all nations and bring everyone to him. But at the same time, we can do that best by targeting who our strengths are to. It can feel very exclusive because we want to make sure we reach these other people, but oftentimes there's kind of a ripple effect. When you're targeting who your strengths are and who you is best to target in a different platform, maybe, sorry. When you're targeting your best audience or your key audience, it will naturally reach other people as well, but you will more clearly say who you're serving and how you're serving them when you target in on a narrow audience. So some of the things that generally help you define an audience is sometimes age, gender, location, interests, hobbies, language, values. Those tend to be a little narrow when coming to a church setting, but they're good starting points for conversation. One of the other tools I would point you to is at HubSpot. Up here is the link, hubspot.com/make-my-persona. And it can help you walk you through the process of making it's an avatar, but it's basically you'll name and create this person that each time you sit down and you're working on your website or you're working on Facebook or Rumbler or whatever your platform, you want to act like you're talking to that person directly because that will help connect people on a more personal level. And then once you've defined this audience, take some time and look at other people who are also reaching them. You can look at other churches who are targeting the same audience as you. What are they doing well? What sort of posts or things about their website get a lot of engagement? What aren't they doing well and what don't I want to imitate? What sort of images are they using? How does that relate to people? If you're posting about a Bible study for single moms and you use a picture of a couple and a baby, it's going to lead to a mixed message. Is this really for single moms or not? And then what can I learn about my audience from this? If this group is really active and it's for single moms in their ministry life and in their Bible studies, what kind of posts do the moms seem to really relate to? How can I imitate that on my own website? And then this is one technique for scheduling social media. This is a little different than a website, but if you're scheduling posts on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, this is the strategy I use. So basically, people engage with social media at different times each day. And, if someone is working the night shift, they're likely sleeping during the day. And so they're not going to see what I post here because social media has this trend where when you post it, it shows it to a small audience instantaneously. If it gets good engagement, then it grows and shows it to more people. But if it doesn't, it's going to fizzle it away and then it's gone. So your social media might only last all of 15 minutes. But if you post at a different time each day, you're going to eventually hit your whole audience, but at different times when they're most accessible to it. So some of the do's and don'ts of social media, some do's. Make it, create engaging discussion, have questions and things that people can engage with, and be active in the comments. Share up-to-date and relevant info. Don't have something from a month ago, have new things that are happening. Take time to educate. Don't just post about events and things. Help people learn and grow at the same time. If you're running any kind of social media groups and things, make sure that you are in control of the privacy settings, that you know who the admin are. And then try and pay attention to posts that get more response and use more of those. And then it's okay to reuse content periodically, especially if you have a mission statement for your church, or you have something that's really key and vital to your organization. It's okay to use it periodically and bring it back. Oftentimes, not everybody sees it the first time, but also don't say the exact same words. Use some different phrasing. In terms of don'ts, don't just sell, and spam. We have a mission that we're really, we care about a lot, but at the same time, people like to feel like they're a part of something, and that means that valuing their responses and involving them is important too. Using photos without permission. It's very important that if you're posting pictures of your congregation, of your kids, that you have permission from parents to be doing that, or permission from the individual. And then also, if you're getting pictures from Google or whatever, a lot of those pictures have copyright laws. So make sure that you're using them appropriately. Posting private information, even if it is a private group, it's possible for people to screenshot. So make sure that you're not posting private information. Don't post or create anything in all caps that says you're screaming or mad. Even if it's really important to you, it's better to make like a short statement, like it's a heading, and then have the details underneath. And then if you reuse posts, don't use or post about the same event. Don't use the exact same words every time. Social media doesn't like that, and it won't post it to as many people. And then some useful resources for creating content. These are some of my favorites. So like I said, you don't want to use social media that has copyright issues. So Unsplash is a great one that anything you download off there, you can just use and don't have to like even credit anybody, and they have really good stuff. Pixabay does this too. They have videos, sounds, and images. And then Pexels is also a good one for videos and images. And then I use scripture art. So this would be Bible verses that you could post throughout the week. And they're already made and they look really nice. So that's a good one as well. Scheduling tools, Hootsuite, Facebook, and Publer. Hootsuite is the most expensive, but maybe the nicest platform. And you can post Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and schedule it so it goes out. So if you decide to spend a day and kind of like that chart that I made with different times for different people, you can schedule it out and not have to think about it. Facebook has some built-in features and allows you to also post to Instagram. Publer lets you post videos and photos to quite a number of different platforms as well. And then some Facebook groups I would recommend getting involved in. Lutheran communicators, church creatives, and church social media managers. Those four, they really do a good job of like, if you have any kind of questions, they're just very supportive. People share free resources, like someone will make a post or a graphic or something and say anybody can use it. And then just for the heck of it, one of my other favorite groups is Photoshop My Pastor. And this is a great one if you want a funny post. Basically, you send a picture of your pastor doing something silly, and they will remove him from the background, like remove the background and put him in a silly scenario. So if he was, I don't know, tripping on a step in the picture, they'll make it look like he's falling into a ball pit or something else silly. So Yeah. And then another one that I forgot to list is Canva. They're a great one for like graphic design and like making very simple posts or pictures for your website or whatever. Yeah. So that is some of my best practices. What questions do you guys have?
Do you hear from churches, is it better doing Facebook or a website? And hard to keep up a website too, which was one of our problems.
Yeah. I think it depends what the purpose of the website is. I'm actually in Nashville, Tennessee right now, and we recently redid our whole website, and the goal was for it to be for visitors. So everything on it is the whole message it's communicating is that come join us, we're a community. And so rather than posting about our ongoing events or anything, it's just about kind of us as a whole. And so now we have this app called Church Center, and that allows us to communicate to our congregation about what some of the upcoming events are. So that we update, and when it gets added to the calendar, they get notified that something's going on. So our app, our target audience is our church, but the website, our target audience is newcomers.
Because websites are helpful. And the reason I say that, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a young gal move to Des Moines. She was looking for a church. She saw that we had handbills, and that's part of why she came to our church. And that's when we had a website.
Mm-hmm.
So it was helpful that way.
Yeah.
It really wasn't designed as that kind of a target though either.
Yeah. I personally think a website really says that once a person goes to like a generic social media site, the website's the next place they look. And to me, that's kind of really, they're more invested at that point and they want to really know what you stand for. And I think it's a good sign that you're a healthy, thriving congregation is when you have, or organization of any kind, when they have a website. But yeah. One of my favorite platforms to build a website on is Wix, just because it's super user friendly, but Squarespace is also a really good one and they're not too terribly expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy looking at websites because I get a lot of my ideas for missions or other activities from that.
Yeah.
So I enjoy going around to them.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Can we contact you later? You said you have kind of this as a side gig to help churches.
Yeah, I certainly, I have all your guys' emails. So I'll email you and share some of the resources after this. And probably because we're recording this, we'll make this into like a YouTube video so you can go back and rewatch it if you'd like to. So
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
yes, thank you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Are you planning to
Thank you.
share the slides also, or at least with us? Or I think it'd be helpful to show others within our
Okay.
congregation. I guess that's the only reason why I asked.
Absolutely, I can do that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Can I pray with you guys and then we can go ahead and close it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Dear Lord, thank you so much for these amazing individuals that you're using to communicate your message to the congregations around Iowa District West. Lord, continue to be with them this week and in the coming months as they share your good news. In your name we pray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
guys.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yep.
Thank you so much.